Hello there, people that have showed up. I'm just cleaning up from the previous time. I forgot to remove the classes from the project, so now my stuff wasn't building anymore. And I noticed Visual Studio had a pretty big update. Oh, there we go. Which I'm not sure is a good thing. So I'm not 100% sure if everything is still functioning as it should. A pretty significant update even. Turn down the music a bit. Hi. I wanted to do something a little bit different now, which focuses more on basically object interactions. I've done something similar before with portals and such, and there was an example during this week's lecture that also had the portals in it. And I got some questions during my lab about it. I got an email about it as well. So I feel like this might be something we could be discussing with everybody. Hang on. Cannot manage the volume very easily. Oh wait. There we go. There. Let me know if the music is too loud or too soft, or not loud or soft enough. Alright. So, during the lecture I showed a demo. Let's see, I think it was this one. Not sure if it'll open in the same window. Or at all. Oh, it opens it as a second project. No, that's not it. Yes. Actually, it wasn't this week. It was last week's lecture. I keep thinking it was this week. But it had to do with the HUD being on the screen. This one, if you remember. With the stream of projectiles firing out. And then the portals over here. This was the thing. So basically, they enter at a certain point and they exit at a different point. And you can get them stuck in the middle. They exit in the opposite side. Which is, if you've played the game Portal, this is not something that you run into during that game. Because the portals you can only access from one side. You couldn't like access them like this internally. I don't know how this will stream, by the way. This might be a little bit too much activity. I think if you aim it correctly, you can get some stuff stuck between the portals. Yeah, like that. But this can lead to some very interesting game concepts. Of course, Portal is a game built fully around this. You being able to teleport yourself between them. But you don't need that in order to have an interesting concept for your game. I guess if you make any type of space shooter like this and you have enemies that can interact with it, or anything that touches it will show up in a different place than it started at. Could be cool. Let me just open an empty project. God, so many. There we go. Don't crash. Good. And it's empty. Yes, it's empty. All right, cool. We can do several things with this. We can teleport ourselves, or in this case, the example case I had is sort of a missile or a projectile. that teleports it as soon as it gets hit. I think might be best to start with something like that, so that we can have a projectile firing in a certain direction, which also I'll also show you how you can do that. I've showed it before, but make it slightly easier. Nope. Boy, does not like having several files open at the same time. Yeah. Nah, oh well. Alright, I'm just gonna call it a projectile. Let's start with that. Something that fires in a certain direction. Projectile. Nice and broad name as well, because anything that moves through space in a certain direction is basically a projectile. If it's a bullet or whatever, doesn't really matter. Give it a speed. By default, let's say 512 sprites, 512 pixels per second. Now I'm gonna need a projectile picture. I think I had one here. This'll do. It's a bit small. Actually, that might be fine if it's small. Don't have to scale anything up. I added a 5 gigahertz Wi-Fi network here so that I could more easily stream without there being any lag. Let's see, using GXPEngine before I forget. And what's the image called? Projectile. Projectile.png. Which should do pretty much nothing else. I guess we changed our origin to the middle, which is such a common operation. Might be handy to include something like this in sprite or game object, because more often than not you want the origin to be in the center. 0.5 times width and 0.5 times height. And during the update, we move in the direction we're pointing over the y-axis with speed times time.delta time divided by 1000. Yeah, that should be it. Now let's quickly test it by adding a public vote update to the game. If I click somewhere with my mouse, get mouse button down, button 0. Projectile, oops, equals new projectile dot x equals input dot mouse x. Oh, it was crashing, but not for long, so maybe they fixed it. Input dot, it's doing it again. Oh no. Well, it is a bit faster. Input dot mouse x add shot. Projectile. That is everything, I think. Alright, let's run it. Click, click, click. Well, it looks more like dropping bombs than shooting them, but the idea is there. Maybe so you can do several things. You can rotate it a bit and make it move around a certain direction. But probably the easiest is to just rotate the sprite so that it actually makes sense. So I rotated it by 90 degrees down. So now if it moves over the y-axis, it will actually point in the direction that it's moving in. On Mac this is pretty easy to do with preview. You can just rotate it. But on Windows, I'm sure you can use Paint or Paint.net or anything you can use to rotate images. What? Oh wait, I forgot to erase. Oh wait, changed the wrong one. This one. There we go. This makes more sense. So if we now give it a bit of a rotation, that's rotation equals 90. Should still make sense and go in the direction it's pointing. Yeah. Nice. That seems to work. Let's also check if it's still on screen and have it clearing itself up, because I don't want to keep track of all of them. If our X position is smaller than minus our width times 0.5, because point's in the middle, to be safe, let's just use our entire width, so it's completely off screen, whichever direction it's going. Oops. Or our X is larger than the game.width plus our width, or Y is smaller than minus height, or Y is larger than the game.height plus our own height. And then we destroy. So they don't keep flying around after we're done with them. Right. So, the interesting part. If you think about it, the portals in the game Portal, there isn't one that is an entrance and one that is an exit. They can both be both. They're both entrances and exits, depending on which one you enter first. So they're basically just two connected black holes? I don't know. But they're connected in such a way if you enter the one, it will exit the other, and the other way around. But they're both pretty much the same thing, except for the color, which is only used so the player can distinguish between them. They're pretty much exactly the same thing. So, I think we're only going to need one class for them. I think you could do with two, like an entrance and an exit portal, but that would mean you can only go one way, maybe. Which could be a design choice. But let's say, yeah, just portal. Using GXPEngine. And have it be a sprite again. First. So I had a little portal image that I used for the other game. This thing, which is just two hubcaps attached to each other. But you can see it's a portal, right? I'll use this one as well. So, base, portal.png, that's it. So, if we add one to the game, portal 1 equal, portal 1 equals new portal, very simple, add child portal 1, do the same thing for a second portal. The more often I say portal, the less meaning the word has. Portal 2. Give them slightly different positions. Let's place this one at 128. 128. And the other one is minus 128, like the exact opposite side. Height, minus 128. And width and height, because we're in the game right now, represent the width and the height of the entire screen. See what it looks like? Yep, seems fine. Maybe put the origin in the center once again. This time I'll do the multiplication the other way around, because it does not matter, whichever you prefer. There. Nice and opposite of one another. And easy to shoot with my little projectiles here. Alright. So, each portal... don't need this anymore. Each portal can be an entrance and an exit. If you collide with it, it becomes the entrance first. And then it teleports you to where another portal is. So, to know that, it needs access to, let's say, another portal called exit portal. By default it's nothing, but we can add a method here. Public void set exit portal. Portal exit portal. And nice autocomplete, thanks. Underscore exit portal equals exit portal. So that way we do have one. So now, when we create them, instead of just having them spawn in places and not do anything when we collide with them, we can at least hook them up together. So after we've placed them in the scene, hook up the portals. We can say portal 1 dot set exit portal. Portal 2. So 1 will exit into 2, and we do the exact opposite for the other one. Portal 2 will exit into 1. Yeah, I mean, theoretically you can add a third portal, and you can have portal 1 exit in 2, 2 exit in 3, and 3 exit back in 1, and you get a bit of a circular thing going. Might not be what you want, but it could be interesting. But by hooking them up together like this, you basically create the portals of the game Portal, because they are attached to each other. Yeah. You could also create a sort of a link method that links two portals together or something, but I guess this will work for now. So, I'm going to use the dreaded onCollision method to start with. OnCollision game object other. So, if something collides with the portal, we want to do something. Oops. First, do a sanity check. If the other is projectile, we only want to do something if it's a projectile. And I guess if we don't have an exit portal, if null equals exit portal, return, which just stops the entire method immediately. So in case we forget to set an exit portal, we just don't do anything. But so if this doesn't get called, we go continue into this. We usually call this sanity checks, because this should work, but just in case it doesn't. Check if we're colliding with another, with a projectile. So we already have this variable, projectile, the new way of doing it. We can do two things. Let's try this one first. We set the projectile.x to our own x and the projectile.y to our own y, which will put it slapdash in the middle of the portal, which would mean it would collide again with the other portal, moving it back to oh wait, actually not our own x, excuse me, that's a mistake, but the exit portal.x and the exit portal.y. Yeah, so basically when it hits us, we set the x and y position to the exit portal, x and y. Yeah. This could kind of work. However, this would probably cause a sort of a loop of them as soon as it gets stuck in there. Let's see. Oh yeah, you can see, I don't know if it shows up on stream. It seems to be stuck in the exit portal here and also on the other side, but might not show up. But it seems to be stuck in there. It doesn't move anymore because it collides, moves back, moves forward, moves back, moves forward, etc. So that's not exactly what we want. but we do want to move it a little bit. So maybe we can see what the difference is between our own position and theirs. Let's see. I think there's a translate method here. Yes. Move the object in world space. Rotation is ignored. Good. Which is similar to move, but move moves the object in world space based on its current rotation. So translate moves it over an x and y without keeping into account its current rotation. So if we were to move it other.translate, let's say nothing over the x-axis, so just move it down for now, and exit portal, whoops, dot y minus our own y. So we get the difference between our position and the exit portal's position. And we should do the same thing with this one. Exit portal dot x minus x. So if you run it, you'll see that. Oh wait, I should remove this first. Projectile at x and y. So now what happens is it hits from here to the top left portal, and it will detect it will calculate the difference between the exit portal and the current portal, and add that to the projectile's position. Actually, we don't even have to check if it's a projectile, but I guess we do, so we only transport projectiles and not everything. It will add it to it. So that would mean that if it hits from the right, which it will move down and appear on the right side of the other portal. I'm not sure if that's what we want. Let's see what happens. Oh yeah, kind of works. Seems to be a little bit glitchy. Seems to move back and forth a little bit. But you can see what happens. It spawns at the right side because it just calculates the difference between the center of this portal and the center of this portal. Hey Ron, are the previous streams uploaded to YouTube? Some of them are. The last week's stream has not been uploaded yet. But yeah, they have been uploaded. I'll post a link to them later on. I kind of wanted to... yeah, Twitch only saves for like 2 weeks, I think. So they disappear after a while. Not sure why this isn't working. Yes, I will share a link to them later on. Maybe I'll put it on Blackboard as well. Maybe I'll do that after next week's stream. I'll just open up all the other streams as well, because I think you have 1 or maybe 2 more weeks before the assessments start. So maybe it might be a good reference point. Not sure why this portal isn't putting it in the other side. Or maybe it is, and it immediately teleports back because they keep colliding. So, to slightly fix that, we don't want to move it over the X position like that completely. We have to check from which direction it's coming and then move it to the other side, I think. So first we can just calculate the difference between where it needs to end up and ourselves. But we only have to do that over the x-axis, because the y-axis, as long as we place it next to the portal, it doesn't matter, because then it won't collide again. If our x position is smaller than, oops, other.x, no, stop auto-completing. Oh my god, it doesn't allow me to type it. Alright, if it's smaller than other.x, that means we are coming from the left. Which means the other x should move a little bit to the left when it exits at the other side. So we deduct its own width, which I guess we could divide by 2 because it's in the center. But let's not do that right now. And we can also deduct our own width. So the width of the projectile sprite and the width of our portal. Otherwise, I think we just do the complete opposite. The other X where it should spawn adds the projectile's width to it and our own width. So exactly the opposite. And instead of having it just spawn here, we spawn it at the other X variable, which we have altered depending on which side we hit it from. Alright, let's see what happens. Not 100% sure if this will work immediately. Yeah, seems to work. And yeah, seems to work fine actually. No double collisions anymore. Maybe I can change this to not get mouse button down, but just get mouse button. So I could try it a little bit faster. That seems to work fine. But does it also work from this side? Yes, it does. Now it does. So I guess the collisions worked fine, but the way it was handling it probably flipped it back and forth once or twice. You can see there's a little bit of overlap with it before it teleports. And that's probably because it moves with the half and such as well. Yes, intelligence is it's been a thorn in my eye sometimes. I think the way Ryder handles it is more user friendly. It's pretty funny. You see like a clone of what you're drawing here on the bottom. All right. I guess that's pretty much it for portals. Let's shoot them at a bit of an angle. But that's really it. Like, it doesn't have to be super complicated. No, this seems to work fine. Yeah, cool. But that's basically it. That's the power of thinking of how to how it works in an abstract sense, I guess. Because all we did really now was attach this portal instance to another portal instance, and then place them in the correct position depending on which side they enter from. That's it. So, I think I mentioned it earlier, but I think we can relatively easily add a third portal, and then we kind of break how normal portals work, because then we're introducing another variable. Add it. Give it a different position. Just put it in the middle. Oh, my birds are panicking. Sometimes they have nightmares. And they wake up in terror. And then they wake each other up because they're startling themselves. Place this one in the middle. Yeah. So let's hook up portal 2 to 1. 1 to 2, I should say. And then 2 to 3. And then 3 back to 1. This should still work the same way it did. So if I enter here. There's something funny happening. It appears on its own other side. Let me just fix this angle back up. Get more of a grasp on it. Thinking with and about portals. Because in concept they're relatively simple, but I remember seeing a dev talk. Wait, 1 exits in 2? But it seems to exit here and immediately go to 3. I guess I'll have to fix this up. I remember seeing some dev talks from Valve about how they did the portal thing, and it was pretty interesting. Especially because through one portal you're able to see to the next portal. Oh, now it seems to work. I guess it was kind of interacting with itself still. It would teleport back and forth a little bit. 3. 2 exits in 3. 3 exits in 1. 1 exits in 2. Yes. Okay. So you gotta make sure, lesson here is, you gotta make sure that they don't overlap at the point of exit. Now you can see, like, as soon as it starts colliding, it stops. Did I forget to put the thingy in the middle? No. My birds are panicking. Yeah, I think this should be fine. This is already how portals work. Though you have to tweak these variables a little bit. Now I just deduct or add a certain amount of pixels to the point of spawning, to the exit portal. But depending on your needs, you might want that to be really tight, or you might just want it to have appeared on some other place. So in this case, if our own position is left of the thing we're colliding with, that means they're coming from the right. So we want it to spawn on the left side. Yeah. So you deduct your own width and you deduct the projectile width. Yeah, that should be how it works. I don't know why this is causing troubles. I think I might have made a small thinking mistake. Yeah, seem to get stuck in each other. Oh boy. Interesting. Interesting, but only sometimes. Well, I think it has to do with the weird positioning here. Maybe there's a glitch in my thing. Hang on 1 second, I gotta calm my bird a little bit. Hey. Say hi. This is my bird. Hey. Gotta put my and I think she had a nightmare. Therefore she's a bit startled. Yeah, it's okay, right? I shouldn't just show. Alright. So yeah. I think if you're making an asteroid type game, hey, don't eat my headset. Portals could be a cool introduction to also show that you have several complex objects in your scene. It's chewing on my headset. Yeah. She has nightmares sometimes. I don't know why. Seems to live a pretty sweet life. She has a cage, but she's never in it. The cage is always open, right? Except if we put the windows open in the summer. Yeah. Don't eat my headset. Let's add some meteors to this, because being a good asteroid-like clone, hey, we need some meteors that we can shoot up. Oh no, actually, let's just create a new one. By the way, you might be noticing that I've put every class I make just in a root directory, which is fine for projects like this. During the arcade project, you might want to make some classes related to background. Give them their own directory, like give it a slightly bigger structure, because otherwise it'll end up being a lot of different files. Hey. Yes, interesting. And you don't want to clutter your workspace too much. Well, portals was the goal of today, but we pretty much already got that to work. So now I'm gonna move over into slightly more of an asteroids type game. Oops. Alright, go back to your perch. Yeah. Because portals, in essence, they don't really do much, but the way you program them has a lot to do with how easy they are to manage. Basically, them having a simple exit portal is pretty much enough to link two of these objects together on collision. I have a nice meteor sprite. This will do. Oh, hi, welcome back. You still scared? What? So brave. Often, I live on the third floor, and we can look over the rooftops here. And if my bird spots a cat across the street, like walking on the roof, she kind of gets a little bit scared. So she may have spotted something that she didn't appreciate. What's going on? Want to see? Want a little look at the camera? See what's going on? No? Squeak? Sit there. One of these days. You know what? Why not right now? I'm just gonna add a method to the sprite here. Center origin. Because I've been using it in literally every class so far. Don't eat my keyboard. No. I know you want to. Stop it. Yeah, just add it here. Public void set origin and center origin. Thank you. Yeah, she's very cute. He's very sweet. I have two of them now, but they're not getting along too much. The other one is still very young, only a few weeks old, and sleeps most of the time because it's still basically a baby. The default origin is top left, I think. So 0, 0. But because the origin is set in pixels, we do need the width and height. So we can only call the center origin method after it's already loaded the sprite up for it. But now, center origin, done. Should be the same thing. Maybe it's better to call it set origin to center. More descriptive. Set origin to the center. There we go. By the way, feel free to add stuff to the classes. I mean, we've only made these to get you guys started. But if you think you're missing some functionality or something, just add it. In fact, it's one of the criteria that you can add. You can get bonus points for if you add some useful functionality to the existing classes. And by adding this to sprite, by the way, it will also be added to animation sprite, which inherits from sprite, if I'm not mistaken. During the update, I guess we'll just rotate it slightly. Plus equals, what's a good rotation speed? Would adding a custom utils folder also count? Yes. If you make a, well, I wouldn't say it's the same as extending the well, it is. I guess it could be extending the engine. It's not altering the engine to fit your own needs, but it is extending the engine if you make some utilities that have methods and functionalities that we don't have in the engine by default. What kind of methods are there in your utils, for example? Something useful. Ah yes, ah yes, Michael. I know you're working on it. I'm pretty curious to see what you've been working on. I'll check the board later. Rotation speed, float. I had stuff like vector math. Ah yes. It does make your life a lot easier. During the physics lectures, you'll be adding your own vector classes and such as well. So you'll basically make the GXPEngine not use the x and y variable anymore, but use a vector 2 for its position, because then it's way easier to do vector math on your objects. There we go. Hard for me to talk and type at the same time. But it's good to get started with that, because vector math doesn't really change anyway. Like if I'd say it is a lot of fun. I actually like it very much. It shows quite a few principles of game engineering that you won't often run into when you're using an engine like Unity. And knowing how that stuff works underwater, like dot product not just being a thingy, like cross product, not just being a thingy you type into Unity and have it do it for you, but understand what it actually represents. I think that's very useful. Makes you a better engineer. Time to delta time. You know, I often do this as well. Time to delta time divided by 1,000. I guess you could add a method here as well with a float delta time in millis. Get return previous frame time divided by 1,000. It's that easy. Now you've expanded the engine. Actually, this should be previous frame time, not just previous time. Yes. And now I can use delta time in millis. And don't have to divide it by 1,000 every time. It will only happen once, I guess. Add it to the game. I'll remove the third portal. It's a little bit over the top. And just have portal 1 and portal 2 be attached to each other. Wouldn't previous time frame divided by 1,000 mean it's in seconds? Yep. Now that you mention it, yep. That is exactly what it means. Crap. Yeah, but you're right, because the current time is actually in millis, so this should be seconds. You're right. Because now you get a duration of 0.016 or something for a 60 frame project. Yep, good catch. Time to delta time in seconds. Yeah, well, good. Shows that you're actually paying attention, and I wasn't. Let's see how this looks. Add a meteor. Meteor equals new meteor. Guess we'll just put it in the center. Notice that I've used 3 different ways of calculating the center so far. Divided by 2, times 0.5 on the left, times 0.5 on the right. Just to show you guys there's plenty of ways. That's a big asteroid. I should probably scale it down a little bit. This might be a little too much. Set scale, or actually I think we can just do this. Scale 0.64, remove, yeah, slightly bigger than half its size. Still too big. Scale it down a little more. There we go. It's rotating funny though. Did it rotate slightly off axis before? No, it rotates exactly around its center. That's an interesting problem I've introduced here. See if we type it out completely. And by calling the width and height here, no, it's still rotating around a point. No, but width is dependent on scale. Yeah, if you look at the definition of the integer of width here, it should be, so it multiplies it with the scale x and it multiplies it here with the scale y. But yeah, you're right. I mean, technically, it shouldn't matter, but I think I mentioned it in the first lecture. Yeah. So you should set the origin first, then scale. I mean, it makes sense in a way. Yeah. However, this should technically work fine. Get return scale x, scale y. Sure. Yeah, it is a set origin. Let's go to. I think if you look at it changes the boundaries. Yeah, it's weird. It should take into account the current scale after setting it, but whatever. I do think, yeah, I guess. From last year I got the same problem with GXP. Yeah, I remember this as well. I might write this down. I'm gonna look at the definition of how we do the scaling. Because technically it should not matter. But it obviously seems to seems to do something. Probably has to do with the way we're going around yeah, storing stuff in matrices but not updating them at the same time or something, but during the same frame. Anyway, this does work. Setting the scale second, setting the origin first. Yeah. Maybe, if you've played Asteroids, I think the bigger ones you have to hit multiple times before they explode. So maybe we can introduce, no, not a public, a private integer health. Maybe have it have like 10 hit points to start with, because we shoot really fast. Oops, where's my thingy? Add a method here on projectile hit, or maybe you can just call it hit, so it becomes hit by a thingy. Yeah. While we're doing that, we deduct one of our health, minus health, and if that equals 0, or I guess smaller than or equal to 0, in case we start out with only one, or we start our health at 0, kind of a sanity check, then we destroy. We're dead. It's over. And by the way, you guys know how you can do it, why this works? You've had it during processing as well, but you can do it. You can increment and decrement in two different ways. You can do it like this: put the minus minus behind it, and this would, if health starts at 10, health minus minus will still be 10. But the value of health will be deducted 1 afterwards. And if you do the minus minus first, it will first deduct 1 and then execute. So this would be 9 if it starts at 10. There is an assert, but you need like a separate library for it. There's a bunch of unit testing libraries, which is what it's called, which are perfect for stuff like this. So if you know how to use an assertion, I'll show how I do it during the Unity lectures, because Unity has an assertion test framework built in, and I'll show you how I use them. But you have to include like a third-party-ish unit testing framework to include like assertions. By default, I don't think there's anything in C#. But I mean, you could write your own and just create like an assert equals, or assert equals null or something, or is not null, stuff like that. Unit testing can save lives if done correctly. Yeah, it's something extra for later on, but it can definitely save lives in the long run. It saves so much time and effort. If there's a mistake, you'll know exactly where it's coming from, which is basically its usage. Also making sure that if you change something in your code in one place, it doesn't break it anywhere else in your code, which is something that will happen with more complex projects. Like you just change the number a little bit, and suddenly your guys don't jump anymore, or something like that. Stuff you didn't even really know is connected, which is known as the ghost in the shell, kinda. Which is also where that movie gets its name, unexpected functionality. Yeah, maybe we can add some unit tests to the GXPEngine for the next year's version. Yeah, it's a good movie. I haven't seen the Scarlett Johansson one, but the original is very good. I'm not a big anime fan, but Studio Ghibli and Ghost in the Shell are up there with like some of the best movies. Anything Studio Ghibli does has such a charm to it. I think. Like I said, I'm not a big anime fan, but Ghibli stuff is high quality animation. Also, why I like the what's the game called again? Ni no Kuni, A New World. Like that looks really good, plays really well, very charming. Maybe when we get hit, we also want to indicate that to the player. I'll just finish you being able to shoot a meteor 10 times and then it having to disappear itself. What you often saw in older games is that if you hit something, it flashes a certain color. Or at least like it indicated that it was hit in a way. And I think the easiest way is including a variable like this. If you hit it, and we don't destroy ourselves, we just set is flashing to true, and during the updates, while also rotating slowly, we check if we're doing a little flash, and if so, for 1 frame we can for example change our alpha to a small percentage, and then set is flashing back to true. So during this frame, we'll basically flash once and set our alpha lower. Yeah, let's see how that works. I'm just gonna up the health significantly so we can shoot it a few times. First though, we need to be able to hit it as well, and that could be done in several ways. Ah, good catch again. Can tell I haven't slept much. Yep. Set it back to false. Instead of checking if it's true, and then it's true again. Yeah, good catch. You guys are attentive today. I'm gonna make it the responsibility of the projectile to impact something. In fact, impact seems like a better name than hit. Impact. Also referring to the movie, what is it again? Something with Deep Impact, I think, where you have to shoot meteors. Sleeping seems to be a thing people like to do. I mean, you guys' exams are coming up, and I would highly recommend to get enough sleep. Even if you don't think you'll be able to finish something. But better to get up a little bit earlier and get some sleep in early. Though, I can say that, but I never did. But Jesus, it's sleep is so important. If other is a meteor dot impact, and of course I guess we destroy ourselves. Yeah, as simple as that. So if we collide with something that is a meteor, we call the impact method on that meteor, which in this case lowers our health by 1 and sets our alpha to 64% of its full opacity for 1 frame. I'm not sure if this will actually... we'll see. So if I click here, it's hard to only shoot 1. Oh yeah. I don't know if it comes through in the stream, but you can see it like flashing a little bit. I'll switch it back to only shooting 1 bullet at a time. So I have a little bit more control over it. Build. Oh. Yes, down, not down. Click, 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 click. Yes, it gives a little flash, which is enough to indicate that something has been hit. And I guess after 100 hits it should disappear, but it might take a while. I guess we can also do something else. Is like messing with the colors. Let me check something real quick. Plus equals time dot delta time in seconds. So this should grow it over time. Yep, pretty quickly. It's kind of weird how the engine defines all the keys on the keyboard but skipped on the 3 mouse buttons. Yeah, you're right. You're right. You know why that is? Because Unity does this as well. And that's the only reason. Usually we would have like mouse button left, middle mouse, mouse button right, something like that. But Unity doesn't either. Unity also expects 0 for left mouse button, I think 1 for right mouse button and 2 for middle mouse. No. Oh! By the way, I see something that answers the question that one of the students had. Show mouse. Game.show mouse. Show or hide the mouse cursor. Now that's interesting. Because he was wondering, like, can I hide the mouse? Yes, apparently you can. Let's see if that works. I mean, you don't see it on the stream anyway, but yeah. That seems to work. So if you make a game where you don't want the mouse to be visible, just call show mouse false during your game's constructor. That's good to know. But yeah, we don't check the mouse buttons. It's just an integer, which is the same as I guess the keys. Yeah, numpad. Everything on the keyboard we typed in. No mouse buttons. Interesting. Well, the only reason why you guys using a 4x4 matrix for a 2D game engine, I think it may have been a little bit legacy. Because the GXP engine didn't used to be just 2D. Way back when, version 0.1. It was based on an engine that Bram, our former teacher, made, that also included some basic 3D functionality. I mean, we technically, with a 4x4 matrix for a 2D game, I think 6 or 8 or so of the cells will not be used, because you have scale, position, rotation. What else? Can't really think of the other things. So I guess technically it's not necessary. Oh, you mean for the problem with the scaling? The scaling and the origin setting? Oh yeah, might be, if they're not updated at the same time, I guess, and not retrieved from the same variables. I'm going to introduce a state variable, by the way. Idle, hit, and exploding. Let's see, private state current state equals state.idle. So let's start out idling. And in the update methods, if current state equals state.idle, we rotate. If current state is state.hit, we do the flashing thing. And then set the state back to something else. To idle again, I guess. There's also some things going on with the width and height of sprites which are a bit funky. You mean the way we calculate the bounds, maybe? Current state, state at idle, yes. During the idle state, just make sure the alpha is always on 1. Oh, don't crash. Don't start doing this again. And then there's one more state. Current state equals state dot exploding. Oh. And I think when this happens, we scale up and also fade out really. It's pretty quickly. Do that in several ways, I think. Let's introduce a new variable. We can remove this flashing now. Oh, first let me check if this still works. So every time we get hit, we set the current state to state.hit, which should automatically move it back to idle after it has hit. So ting 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 ting. Yeah, still seems to work the same way. With the width and height, save it as a float but return it as an int. Oh yeah, that is true. Yes, because we round it down. We round it out to full pixels. Is the reasoning behind it? Though I can understand if you start scaling, this might lead to some rounding errors in like on sub-pixel levels. Also, if the health has run out, we move to the state exploding instead of just destroying ourselves. And if the health hasn't run out, we just move to the hit state like this. So as soon as we're dead, check. If we're dead, then we move to exploding. Otherwise, no. I'm gonna move the health back to 10 because it seems to be a little bit much. 100. In fact, let's move it to 3. Even less. I'll introduce a little float here called the timer, which starts at 0. Meteor killed in action. Float timer max. How long should this take? I'll check that later. First, as soon as we start exploding, when we're in the exploding state, it's also not rotating. Also, when we're hit, we don't rotate, which is also like gives a little bit of extra impact to what we're doing. So instead of adding the time in seconds to the scale, let's add it to the timer. And let's say how long should this animation last? Duration is 0 to 5 seconds. So our scale, no, our alpha might be the easiest. So we fade out over the course of 0.5 seconds. Is that the easiest way to do it? I think so. A quick calculation. So alpha equals the timer divided by the current duration, which is the percentage that we're at, and we want it to go the opposite direction, so we do 1 minus that percentage. Man, I've said so many things. Yeah, programming out of context is the best thing. First we check if we are in an exploding state. I've said so many things that would not look good in court. Nice. Well, you can see it kind of loops. So we want it to be done after if the timer is larger than the duration, or equal to, I guess. That means it's done. So we destroy. Not destroy, destroy. This is adding a bit of polish to the game. So once it's been hit 3 times, 1, 2, 3, it fades out and it's gone. But that's not really a nice explosion. But we can fake an explosion a little bit. This right here basically gives us this little part right here gives us a percentage of how far we are into the half-second timer. By deducting it from 1, we go in the opposite direction, but maybe we also want to go in the other direction and use this as a way to scale ourselves up. Why not use an I enumerator for that? I'm not sure what you mean. Not 100% sure. I enumerator. Wait, did I miss something? Check if we're over the time limit and destroy our cells. I guess we need to keep track of which scale we're starting at. Private, float, start scale. So after we set our scale to 0.5, we also store our start scale, because here we can then start upscaling, but not just from 1. scale equals start scale plus let's say we grow 8 times over the course of 0.5 seconds times percentage. Basically call a function that starts calling itself until the condition is met. You mean a recursive method? I think if you want to do it this recursively, then it won't show the updates. First, let me check real quick if this looks anything like I want it to. Well, this is a little bit extreme. No, recursion is very useful, and you'll learn a lot about it later on. But it's a little much. Let's not scale it up to 8 times its normal size. Let's do that a little smaller. 1, 2, 3, 4. Nice. Still really big. Also, let's slow this down significantly. Let's do it in 0.16th of a second, so it becomes way more explosive. Tink, tink, tink. Nice. Now that feels more explosion-like. But let's also include this now. The impact methods, when it moves to the exploding state, let's return false. Otherwise, return true. Because when it starts exploding, we want the projectiles to keep flying. So if the impact does not absorb the meteor, we destroy ourselves. But now we should be able to shoot through the exploding meteor, for example. Or maybe not. Especially if you want to do multi-threading stuff. Oh yeah, but during algorithms and such, you'll run into a lot of recursion. How to tickle the stack, as we programmers call it, stack tickling. Oh, actually, I did it the other way around. Yeah, see, the other one keeps on going. But doing it like this, having a little animation, tink tink, pink, like an explosion, gives way more feedback to the person playing it than it just disappearing off the screen, which is something you see a lot in the earlier versions of games. Current state hits, return. So if we get hit after when we're already exploding, if current state equals state dot exploding, just return, what was it again? False, I think. Yeah. So we can keep shooting while we're like if we interact with any projectile while we're exploding, it should just keep on flying now. Returns true when the impact is absorbed, like this. So now, while it is exploding, I should be able to keep shooting. Yeah, and they don't interact with the meteor anymore while it's doing its little explosion animation. But this little thingy here, creating a timer with a certain duration, which is basically what you're doing, being able to keep track of it, you can do some really cool stuff with that. Some simple animations. You can also lerp it or linearly interpolate it. Let's see, where's the... And basically curve it, so make it start really fast and then go down slower. I don't know if you guys use linear interpolation in processing. I think there was a little part about it, but I'm not sure what they how deep it went. I don't think it went very deep. But basically, you feed it a number between 0 and 1. And it will give you a number between 0 and 1 back, but on a different time scale. Usually you feed it a linear number, like a timer, which is linear, depending on if you have slow motion in your game or not, but usually time is linear. So between 0 and 1 second will take exactly 1 second. That value, let's say you're halfway through, you're half a second in, 0.5. That value, depending on the curve, you feed it 0.5, but it will give you back 0.2 or something if it eases in slower. And then, but the beginning and end are the same. So it will start at 0 and it will end at 1. So it starts out slowly and then scales up over time, creating a sort of a curve. This all sounds way more difficult than it is. I'll show you an example next week during the lectures as well on how to use linear interpolation. And I have a little lerp. I don't know if I've included this. There's a nice lerp library you can download for free that allows you to curve your animations and your movements and such. Similar to what a sine does. Like if you use sine on an x value, it will go between -1 and 1, but it'll slow up and speed down. Slow down and speed up over depending on how close it is to the center. So the closer it gets to 0, the faster it will seem to move. Then it will slow down a bit, and it will move faster again, and it will slow down a bit. And if you do this correctly, you can create some really fancy animations. There's also also curves that go over their limit slightly, but they always start and end at the same points as their linear values. So you can have one that moves from A to B, but instead of stopping directly at B, you can have it like overshoot it a little bit and then move back. That looks really nice for certain more playful animations. If you look at I released an Android and iOS game a little while ago, and that game is full of linear interpolations. I think every movement, literally every movement, has some form of interpolation on it to make it feel more weighty, I guess is the name. Alright. So, we've made some portals. We got an asteroid or a meteor that we can shoot and it'll explode. Next week I'll probably cover all types of effects, sound effects, visual effects, stuff like that. I will cover it during the lecture anyway as well. But I think I should probably get to work. I have some grading to do before tomorrow, so I should probably do that before time's up. Anyway, this quadtrees. Quadtrees for the collision detection, or quadtrees for quadtrees in general? Just quadtrees everywhere. Where's my thingy? Alright. I think I have to go. Yep. 10 for quadtrees, either for rendering or collision detection. Oh. Well, there's definitely some optimization that could be done there. Introducing quadtrees for the collision detection would be a huge optimization. Though, we do want the collision detection to not be super optimized so that people kind of have to pre-optimize their code a little bit by keeping everything in a list, for example, and doing the hit detection manually instead of using on-collision like I'm doing here. Though on-collision is more than fine if you don't have that many objects. You can see even with like hundreds of little projectiles on the screen, it's still, it doesn't lag at all. Computers are fast. Will it be something that would be accepted? For rendering? Definitely. I don't see any reason why we wouldn't. Though you have to keep in mind that the canvas that we're using for the easy draw methods and such is not an OpenGL thingy. It's a graphic library thingy. So that's more. I don't know if you can put that in a quadtree because it's not rendered in the same way. Canvas inherits from or it uses the drawing core. Yeah. Though if you were to rewrite the canvas to work with OpenGL, we would be very grateful because that's something we've been putting on a list for a while, but nobody wants to do it because it's a lot of work. There's so many things that you can do with the canvas. However, by including the easy draw, I don't think we use the canvas directly anymore. It's fine. It would be awesome if you can include some of these things, but don't worry yourself about it. There's also some teachers working on it when we have the time, but this course is almost over. One more lecture and then the assessment. People will still be using the GXPEngine for algorithms and also for physics. But after that, we probably won't be touching the GXPEngine anymore. So the semi-deadline for this would be next year. Oh yeah. We've done a bunch of quick wins with this engine already, like small changes that improved a lot compared to last year's version. But there's still a lot to be done. And there's always the discussion like, should we be using vectors for our positioning and scaling and such, and not just an X and Y value. Well, I don't. I still have to do other courses. Plus, I have to follow a what is it called? A semi-master degree, like a course as well. The next 2 quartiles. So it's going to be fun. Yeah. The reason why we don't is because Flash didn't have it and processing doesn't have it. So it's to make the transition easier. As you can see, like the GXPEngine is an amalgamation of all these different types of engines that we've been using over the years. Flash, it was mostly based on Flash, though we have quite heavily moved away from that. Now it's more aimed towards Unity. And though Unity obviously has its transform and the factor 3 for its positioning and scaling and such, the roots of Flash with it having a separate X and Y value are still here, because that's also what processing does. Because we were planning on including the vectors for the new year, but because processing doesn't do it, we think it's not necessary yet. Maybe next year. I'm not sure if processing will be the same course next year. We'll probably still use it, but maybe in a different way. It's also like we don't take the good stuff from everything. We just take the exceptions, the stuff that's different from other engines. Yeah, GXPEngine is meant to be an intermediate between a lot of stuff, from people moving from processing into the C# realm, the more 2D engine focused stuff, and then on over to Unity, instead of immediately starting with Unity or something. The stuff. Yeah, all the good stuff. Yeah, but you're right. It's basically all the quirks, not all the stuff that makes it the same as other engines, but all the stuff that makes it different from other engines, to have people ease into a lot of these things over time. Yeah, didn't know They had Git integration with this now. I'll never use it in this. I'll just keep using source tree. All right, I gotta go. Yeah, thanks for watching, guys. One more stream next week, and that'll be it. That'll be it for this course, I think. Yeah, we'll see. I'm not sure if I'll be able to do another stream between the assessments and the last course. So probably next week, last stream for this course. But then we'll see. Easier to explain in text. But we used to have 2 courses when everything started: the GDP, Game Design Program, and GEP, Game Engineering Program. So we replaced the one in the middle with X because it could be engineer or designer. They both had to use the GXPEngine. That's it. That's why it's GXP, because it was for neither the GDP or GEP alone. Yeah. Oh yeah, true. I've heard like 4 or 5 different names for it now. I wasn't around when it was still game creation and production or producing. I wasn't around at the time, but I do know the short. What do you call it? Shorthands. It was GEP and GDP, which, if you add them together, will be GXP. Yep, that's just basic science. We've had GEP, GDP for the design course. I think like in the very first year, when the design course was still a sub-course of art and technology, it had a completely different name. And the engineering course was a sub-course of computer science. It also had a slightly different name. Yes, that's basic math. E plus D equals X. That's simple mathematics. I mean, we all know that. Letters and numbers don't mix. All right, I gotta go. It's getting late. Thank you guys for watching. See you next week during the lecture and otherwise during the stream. I'll close all this down. I'll think of a full game that I can make during next week's. Or if you have any suggestions, feel free to send them to me. Like of one full game that should be doable within 60 to 90 minutes of continuous work without interruption by any birds. Not pointing any fingers. Oh, she's sleeping now. Still though, she knows what she did. Alright. Have a good night. Bye bye.